Hi, Mallika. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Can you
Thank you
hear?
for joining in. A brief about what we do at the beautiful planet. Uh, this is a little variation to what you usually hear. And I read it in one of the books I was reading. It said, "We don't own this planet. It's a gift from our ancestors and a legacy that we have to leave our children." The idea behind Beautiful Planet, and welcome to one of the latest episodes, is to get talking to children and young adults to see what they think of climate change and the initiatives that they are doing and how engaged they are. It always amazes me to see young people doing a lot of work. And yeah, Malika I've known since she was a little kid, and to see what Malika has done, the kind of work she does, and just to, I mean, I was reading about her on LinkedIn, and I was reading about her profile on in the place of her work. It's just inspiring for me to see how young people can do so much in their short lifespans up until now. And to know that at 22, Malika, I was not aware. I was not as aware as you are. So welcome on the chat show, and thank you for agreeing to do this with me.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Malika, I mean, just so that everybody listening in, and we have quite a group of people joining in. In fact, some of them you'll see are young teens. There is Ahilia, who was one of our first, was the first person on Beautiful Planet. In fact, Beautiful Planet has inspired her, and her sister Anaga is also there. There is Sukirti, as you see. We are all part of an organization called Transformation Travel Council that looks at transforming the way we travel with all the attitudes and attributes of responsible and sustainable tourism. So we have a lot of people, and let's dive right in. And please tell us something about yourself and what you've been up to.
Sure. Um, every time I'm asked to talk a little bit about, what I'm doing currently, I always start by talking about my fellowship with Teach for India, because that's where a lot really began for me. So in from 2014 to 2016, I did the Teach for India fellowship in Gurgaon in a school, in an NGO school. And I think it was through those 2 years, through my experience with the kids in my classroom, that I really started focusing on the environment. And I used to often think that I'm teaching my students all these things about maths and science and English, and like perfecting their language skills. But at the end of the day, like, what kind of planet are they actually going to be living in, and what is the kind of environment that I'm leaving behind for them? When I say my generation, it's really weird, because like I still consider myself pretty young, but the kids I taught were in grades 3 and 4 at the time.
Yeah.
um, so I think, like, for me, that's where it really began. That's where I started really exploring the outside world with my students. We actually, in the second year, we started a small community garden near school. We started composting all the waste from their houses, all the wet waste from their houses. And that's also around the same time when I really started thinking more deeply about waste. And that's, as an area of interest that really like came up during my fellowship, because my kids were all, and I call them my kids, but my students were all living in these areas surrounded by so much garbage.
Garbage.
Just no systems to deal with the waste that gets generated. And the worst is, when you say that I'm throwing something away, there's no away. It actually goes into someone else's backyard, and
Back.
more often than that, someone else's front door. So
Yes.
that's when I really, like, I always go back to that experience because it taught me so much.
Yeah. Fantastic. And we, I mean, since this is what, about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I did the fellowship right after college. So from 2014 to 16, it's a 2-year fellowship.
Yeah. Can you think back and see in your childhood, from school or with parents, how some of these ideas, I mean, literally, grew inside you, the thoughts, I mean, just to start thinking in this way is very, not everybody, it doesn't happen to everybody. So can you look back and see where it all began for you
Definitely.
before teacher?
Yeah, definitely. There's a very clear link. My grandmom, and again, this is a story that I tell often. My dadi was, huge in gardening and was known for, keeping the best gardens. She was a flower show judge for almost 15, 16 years. After that, my dad has, as you know, actually, has been very passionate about farming all his life.
Farming. Yes.
So, we've grown up eating pesticide-free vegetables from our own farm, from our own gardens. We've been, the basics of don't you carry your own bag, or, like limit the use of plastic in the house, reuse and recycle everything. Like, I think that was ingrained in my life at a very early age. So yeah, I definitely credit my parents and grandparents for that.
Grandparents for
Yeah.
that. And what about school, Mallika?
Yeah, there was, to be honest with you, I was just too engrossed in sports my entire life, like school. So yes, like while I was really passionate about the environment, it was never like this, it was never front and center of everything that I did in school. Of course, there was, like environment club, and you did tree plantations, and the school gave you like saplings for uh, festivals and stuff. That was all there, but it was never to that extent that it consumed me every single day. For me, school was all about sports and like specifically football. So
But that thread of, that nurturing thread continued. So which kind of, it brings home and school together rather nicely, right?
yeah, definitely. Like through school, while growing up, my brother and I spent a lot of weekends at our farm. So, like
I've been
completely
there, yeah.
back to nature. You've been
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago. Long time ago.
Yeah, so in fact, it's a space that I'm trying to revive as well. And if you go to my Instagram handle, you can see like a link for Green Leaves Farm. So it's
Okay.
a space where I really see, like I feel like a lot of city kids today don't have that access to nature, and don't have that access. A lot of city kids don't even know where their food is grown or where their food comes from.
It comes from,
So
yeah.
it's definitely something that I'm thinking about, giving young kids today that space and that access again.
So they can go and, get their hands and feet muddy, you mean? Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
soon. That's we're thinking about what we can do there. But yeah, soon.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And thank you for those lemons. I mean, they were absolutely fabulous. Um,
Yeah, more will come soon.
yeah, I know. Every time they come. And what else are you growing in the farm, Malika?
So at one point, actually, like as you know, my dad's been pretty busy with the museum, but
Mm.
for the last 2 years, we haven't grown much. But before that, every winter, we would have at least like 15 to 20 different vegetables through the
Yeah.
winter. So at
Winters,
least five.
I've seen lettuce come in sometime. I
Oh
know. Yeah.
yeah, the best salad leaves that you can think of.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Looking.
we used to get a good like about 100 kgs a week, 150 kgs a week of at least 15 to 20 different vegetables. And we just started like just to get the community together. We had started a little farmers market of sorts in our own driveway. So every Sunday it was such a nice feeling that we used to like all our neighbors used to get together in our driveway, which isn't that big, but it actually brought this sense of community and togetherness, which is often missing in again city lives today.
Yeah, especially when Gurgaon was formed, because we were all unknown people to each other. Where was the
Yeah,
community? There was hardly any community that you knew from before. So
yeah.
you're an avid traveler. We'll come to that later. So, and minimalist and a zero waste. So let's the zero waste advocate. Let's look at the zero waste part, which is something I'm aspiring for, and I find it extremely difficult. But personally, I try and be. So tell me about the zero waste advocacy. I mean, how do you go about that?
Sure. So for me, like moving towards a zero waste lifestyle really started again during my fellowship, in the second year of the fellowship, and then right after my Teach for India fellowship, I decided to take a gap year to travel. And for the first 6 months of that, I traveled within India, and I said, okay, I don't want to just travel, and I want there to be something more. So I decided to travel, and in the process of travel, I wanted to create as little landfill waste as possible.
Possible.
And at that time, there was this craze of, like, not craze, there was this trend at that time of collecting all your waste in this little jar. So I did try that, and it did show me that in India we have a lot of these, I guess, we have these techniques and ways and methods of reducing waste that have been there for so many
For a
generations,
soul.
but
Yeah.
are just
Yeah.
getting lost.
Yeah.
So I tried all that. I tried, and then you have to, like, you have to examine. And for me, my favorite thing to do is examining, like, a dustbin to see what is it that you're actually throwing out, and then work backwards from there.
Wow.
So it was while traveling, at least it was, where's your food coming from? Like, what kind of packaging are you looking at? The typical water bottles, and a lot of food packaging basically. And I found that, you know there are so many ways of cutting it out.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about zero waste, I feel like in the first few years when I was trying it out, I was really harsh on myself and those around me, and I would, like, it was zero or nothing. But I
Yeah.
think, like, zero waste is a journey. It's not, I don't think, you can cut out everything in one day or overnight.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
There have been so many instances in my life where, I've been in situations where it's not always possible. We live in a society where, like, our system, like, the world is created in such a way now that it's not possible to completely shun everything out. I mean, like, plastic has helped us in multiple different ways. I remember last year I got typhoid. I was living in Varanasi for 7 months, and I got typhoid. And the different kinds of single-use plastic that saved my life over that course of 1.5 months when I was sick and recovering just also opened my eyes to the fact that there's nothing wrong with the product. It's how we use it and how we throw it away and how, we deal with it. And yeah, so there's so many aspects to, the zero waste lifestyle that and again, like,
First of
it's
all, I
not
think
easy.
yeah. First of all, I think we concentrate on one-use plastic, right? I mean, use and throw. So that's what
Yeah,
you eliminate. So which
yeah,
kind of, if you go back to basics and as you begin the day, so which means a toothbrush, for instance, which you
yeah.
can, literally, does it work under? Does it? Do you eliminate that? Do you?
So I have personally, but I also think it's a space of privilege.
Yeah.
A lot of zero waste options that, I mean, of course, you can use a datun stick and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to
Absolutely.
brush my
Yeah.
teeth with. And I did that in Varanasi. I did try it. It didn't suit me, but I did try it. But buying a bamboo toothbrush is significantly more expensive, and it's not accessible to everyone. I think we have to
Everyone. Correct.
accept that. We
Yeah.
have to accept that, and we can't. And even right now, when you said that, there are some single-use plastics which we just shouldn't use. But then I think of all these situations where, um, like, for example, where there's been a natural disaster and people
Correct.
are literally, like, suffering and dying, and all they want is water. They don't care where it's going to come from.
No.
Now,
Absolutely.
how
Yeah.
can you tell that community or those people that, don't drink in plastic bottles?
Correct.
So
No, I
it
understand. Where disaster and
yeah.
things like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go
So
ahead.
there's so many aspects of it, like, where do you draw the line? So, like, I've just, like, started becoming really, like, conscious of
Use and
not being
purpose.
too, and yeah, not being too preachy about it as well. Like, something that may work for me because I have access to it, I have privilege, I may have the money to purchase it, someone else may not.
May not. Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's just, yeah, it's about being conscious, and it's about accepting that it may not be possible for everyone at this
Possible all
stage.
the time. Yeah, I quite agree with that, because one of the things that I've realized, that if you force it down somebody's it doesn't work. In fact, it actually sets them against you more than
Yeah.
understanding what it is. But because we are on this topic and you're also an avid traveler, I wanted to tell you, in this post COVID issue, um, is this whole, I mean, one of the things that everybody talks about is that sustainability, or this whole move that whatever we've managed for plastic has to be sidelined for some time now. That is a big that's actually quite big for us, because you're talking about the hospitality and travel industry, which is so many people. The numbers are huge. And so what would you do in such a circumstance? I mean, is that a crisis enough for you to be looking at it a little bit more with a little bit with better sense? I mean, would you look at it with more you know presence of mind and say, okay, this, here you can use or not use? I mean, how would you look at that?
It's honestly a really difficult question because obviously I don't think we've ever lived in a time like this, right?
Yeah.
Like no one knows what the right answer is, but for sure we're seeing the repercussions already. Like I was talking to some friends back in Sydney and they said we actually walk on the beach every morning and there are like face masks everywhere.
Everywhere, yes. I saw
So
pictures from Bombay. Yeah.
yeah, but it's so difficult because I mean, obviously, the problem then is the way we're disposing it, right?
Yeah.
Like right now, we're talking about face masks saving lives, and
Mm.
these PPE kits saving lives, and I'm sure like all the people working in the healthcare system understand that as well. They need it, and
Yeah.
it's we need all that to stop this pandemic from claiming more lives every single day. So the problem then becomes dealing with that. And the reason why I don't like saying waste is because it's not waste, it's a resource. Use it for whatever you want, but at the end of the day everything is a resource. So using or disposing that resource after you're done using it, that is where we're getting it wrong right now. The
Correct.
fact that so many masks and so many other medical supplies are ending up in our oceans and rivers and on the streets. Even here I see, when I'm walking on the streets, I've seen masks so many times.
Yeah, yeah. I go to walk in the
It's
park and there's a
about,
bunch lying there. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not about, of course, like our consumption of these products has gone up during this time exponentially,
Yeah.
but it's about how do you deal with that product and not say that okay, we should just stop creating this product.
No, but what about starting to look at benign choices, for instance? I mean, like, right from, I mean, for at least those of us who can afford and look and things like that, what about looking at benign choices? So, where does that begin? Where does our choice begin?
Definitely. Like I said, if you are privileged to make that choice, make it. Because at the end of the day, it does matter. Like a lot of people say, okay, and right now, I wouldn't even blame someone. We're living in this world where saying something like,
Yeah.
I'm one person, how does it matter? There's no way it's gonna matter. But I still say, and maybe, you know, it's the optimist in me after so many years also, like I still say that don't give up. Like even one person's actions matter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for example, if you can opt for cloth masks, if you're in that position, then do it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there
So
are
it's
things
always
that you
about
can
making
do.
the choice if you can, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, for example, we know that now, especially wherever we go, a lot of places will try to offer us bottled water because a
Hmm.
lot of people are going to be concerned about hygiene and safety. So, like, why not carry your own bottle from home? I
Own
mean,
bottle.
that's something that we've been taught from when we were literally toddlers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not start doing that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And what other daily things that you attack as zero waste during the day?
Um, there's so many things now. I think the biggest thing for me again is ensuring that, in the morning when someone comes to collect our waste, barely anything goes out.
Goes out. Yeah.
Barely anything goes out.
Yeah.
So we have, have at least, I think, almost 8 boxes in our house for proper waste segregation, like, so we ensure that even when we are giving it to the kabadi wala at the end of the month, he takes it with, we give it with dignity.
Yeah.
He's doing a job. In fact, these people are so, they're playing such an important role in our
Role.
community. I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
really realizes the role that they're
Realizes
playing.
that. I mean, this was our recycling economy. I
Yeah.
don't know if you remember, there was a one time when they used to come with bartans in their head, and they would take away saris and things like that, or an old plastic box or something. Then they'll give you things for it and steal bartans in exchange. It used to
Yeah.
happen at one point in time. Yeah. So that's tell me about your minimalism. This is again something I struggle with, though I came from a background where my father was a strict he ruled over the house till the end of his days. 2 trousers and 2 shirts was what, and he used to advocate the same thing to us, but I struggle with it. So tell me about
Yeah. So in 2017, actually, I had just gone to Australia to do my master's, and I promised myself for 1 year I wouldn't buy any new clothes, because you really don't need, like,
don't
at
need.
least all of us do not need more clothes.
No,
And
definitely.
in that year, I actually ended up buying, I think, 1 or 2 new things. But not that we don't have it in India, but in Australia, right where I was living in Sydney, I actually discovered amazing secondhand markets that used to happen every Saturday and Sunday. And I used to love going there. So you could like pick up anything and everything you wanted, which someone else didn't want. And I just loved that concept. I mean, we have it in India as well. There's so many secondhand markets.
Markets there,
But
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but that's something, I think with clothes, that's something I realized. Like, I don't need more clothes. I don't need to buy, and it's very different from how I was in school and college. Even though I grew up mostly wearing secondhand clothes of like my brother or
Brother.
cousins, or like, how in India they just pass down through generations.
Yes, yes.
Uh, I I did that, but I always wanted like 500 dresses at least. I just wanted
Yeah.
them, even if
Oh my
I was
God.
buying them from like Sarojini or somewhere. And
So from 500 to two a year
my
is like, that's
cupboards used to be
amazing.
spilling. My cupboards used to be spilling with clothes. I think that's the first thing that I did. I definitely cut down on buying clothes. I didn't need them. Like you read about the fashion industry, and as a whole as well, and the waste that gets created there. For me, it's not essential. Like, I
Absolutely.
can make do with less clothes. I'm in fact sitting in my pajamas while I'm talking to you. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it just
No, that's
apart from
wonderful.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about like the everyday, everyday zero waste hacks or tricks or something that I follow every day. And composting has to be my number one. Like, it's
Yeah.
my favorite thing to do. In fact, 2 years ago, I had over 100 fruit saplings from my compost pit. Over 100. I had at least 70, 80 papaya trees, and I had over 25 mango trees.
Wow.
Most of which I take to my farm and like plant there.
Yeah.
But this year, I'm giving it. We have a couple of gardens here where I live, not too far from you. But
Yeah.
we're doing like a community plantation. Then there are a couple of like NGOs I know who do plantations every monsoon. So I was going to give
Oh,
plant like saplings there. It just shows that waste is not waste, it's just a resource in the wrong place. I
research.
mean, imagine
Yeah.
those 100 saplings never coming out because they went into the landfill.
They went into the landfill. So waste is not a waste. It's just a resource. What is that you said? That's such a
It's
great,
just a resource in the wrong place.
a
I
resource in
didn't
the wrong
say it.
place.
It's a very
Complete.
famous thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, but it sounds perfect. I mean, and you also said that it's not about the waste you create; it's about how you dispose them, or So that's also them. So
And
somebody,
we're really
yeah.
lucky in Gurgaon. Actually, I'm not sure how many people watching this are from Gurgaon, but we're really lucky. We have this place that's been set up by I Am Gurgaon. It's called
Hmm.
Samadhan Hub.
Mm-hmm.
And I go there once a month with my recyclables. and it's amazing. Like I would 100% recommend everyone checking it out.
Yeah.
If you just look at I am Gurgaon on Instagram as well, they just put up a new post yesterday. They've
Hmm.
redone the entire waste collection system. Again, it's
Okay.
been set up by all these amazing people living in Gurgaon. So I would highly
Fantastic.
recommend using that
Yeah.
space and taking your recyclables there.
Fantastic. That's really wonderful. And let's come to your travel bit. There are a couple of questions that I wanted to, and a couple of comments that I wanted to read out. One is Jean writing in from Australia. She says, I love this talk. I bought secondhand sari from Jodhpur market. That's so wonderful. Saris actually outlast one generation, at least one generation, yes.
So
And
a quick note on that actually. I had a couple of weddings to attend earlier this year, and I didn't want to make new clothes because like how often do you wear these wedding clothes, these nice lehengas and all. So I actually took out 10 of my nanis and dadis and mom's saris that my mom was willing to give me and saying, okay, fine, I don't have too much of an attachment. I actually cut all of them up and made all my outfits.
how wonderful,
So
how
yeah,
wonderful.
there's a
But
lot you can do with saris.
Mallika, if you speak to Praveen and you speak to your mom, this is what we
Yeah.
did when we were in school and
Yeah.
college. We didn't have that kind of money, so we always, mom's old sari or this and that, or even went and asked our friends if there was something that they would exchange. I mean, for they would we could borrow from. So 1 second. So there is the Arctic question coming up, and. That's so powerful way to think of about waste. This is from Traveling Camera. Thank you so much. Stoke Palace is one of our. I think this is Aditya here. I think that's a great suggestion, and lots need to be done for to create awareness in the community. Need to be created more truly food for thought. So yeah, so hand me downs person for most of my life. Yeah, so there are some good points. There was one question which how do we reuse plastic? This is from somebody called Style for Pretty Plus.
I think it depends what kind of plastic it is. If it's hard plastic, soft plastic. I mean, like I've used multiple forms of hard plastic as, to grow saplings in.
Yes, yeah.
Whether I mean now soft plastics, a lot of you must have heard about eco bricks.
Yes, yes.
But in Gurgaon, the place that I was just mentioning, they actually use a lot of plastics for road construction. They mix it in with the cement. I'm not 100% sure, like, what the status of microplastics there is, whether it runs off
Mm.
into our drains and all, but I know there's a lot being done. There is no excuse for any kind of waste anymore to go to landfills.
Yeah, there is
So
absolutely none.
it
I
depends on
completely
what
agree with
kind
you.
of plastic you're talking about.
Absolutely. There's someone who's listening to us. Her name is Miss Zero Waste, which is fantastic. I mean, and she says the biggest question of all time is where do we draw the line? So, I mean, that's a good question. Where do we draw the line, Mallika?
I think she asked this since we were
In
talking
context
about,
of plastics, where we were talking about how when during crisis and when people are ill or something like that, the use of plastic, how you yeah. So I think that's in the context of where
yeah,
this is.
it's a tough one, I'd say, and it depends from situation to situation. There's no one answer fits all kind of situation here, like
Yeah.
I think you really have to assess the necessity in that situation. And yeah, I
So
can't
I
say.
also guess, yeah, I also think that, once you're aware, once you're aware, you are aware of the damage it causes, you're aware of this thing, you will make it your business to find benign choices. I mean, that's how it has been for me. Yeah. So while I won't touch a bottle, like a bottled water, but there are sometimes, I mean, you're on a train or something like that, and like I won't take any. I don't eat on flights. I won't eat on trains. I won't take plastic. Even on long distance flights, I take my own food. But there are some times where what do you do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think making a choice, which is when you're aware, making a choice kind of becomes very simple, and
And
then you
I
call
think,
out when you think there are.
yeah, I was about to say, I think along with that, because we live in this world with social media, it's very important to call out. So a simple example, I attended this conference in Varanasi, which was done in collaboration with Facebook, and it was happening at the Taj. and it was all about social impact and like, and all the NGOs that were in Varanasi working at the time had come, and they had given the 500 attendees there individually wrapped books, like these little notebooks wrapped in plastic, and they were giving these tiny water bottles. So they had over like 2-3 thousand of these tiny water bottles, all these things. And I actually started talking to some of them, and they were like, yeah, this should not be done, this should not be done. Everyone went home. I literally took 2 pictures, I put them up, and the next day I got a response from both Facebook and Taj saying, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and this is something that we wish to correct in the future. And I said, that's the power of social media. Like, if you don't speak up and you just like have this conversation in your living room or with a bunch of friends, I don't think anything's going to change.
Anything is going to happen. Yeah. And calling out is very important, especially if you're seeing it, I think, when you call out. So let's talk about your travel, Mallika. I mean, you traveled for what, 6 months in India? Where all did you go?
So I took a year off. I started off, I was, exhausted from teaching for 2 years, and I said, okay, I need a break. And the funny thing is, I actually started by living in this tiny village right above Manali for 2 months. It was called Jagatsuk. It's about 8 kilometers above Manali.
I know Jagatsuk. Yes.
I ended up teaching in a small government school there. It was like on top of it was a 45-minute hike every morning up this hill. But so I started there for 2 months, and then I went down south for about 4.5 months. And I did basically east coast down to Kanyakumari, up the west coast till Wayanad, and then my brother was in Bangalore. So I in fact took the train on both coasts, and I only traveled by public transport at that time. So only buses and trains, no bookings, no hotels, no. At one point there was this time when I had just reached Kanyakumari. It was about 11 p.m. at night, and I was alone in a bus. I had nowhere to stay, and the bus driver, and there's a rule in Kerala, I think, that the bus driver has to drop you anywhere if you're a female traveling alone or whatever, between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., something like that. At that time there was a rule. And the bus driver actually said that, don't worry, don't panic, I will find you a place. So he found me like a little homestay, kind of a cottage, made sure I was inside, made sure, like, it was an amazing experience. But I mean, something that's very rare in India, I would say, but I felt very safe in South India. Like, I felt very safe. I stayed in places as cheap as 50 rupees a night.
Wow.
To about,
that's very exciting life. I mean, imagine, it's fabulous. Yes.
To about, like, I'd say 500. So I was in a major budget. And I used to have no plans. I used to sit on a train or sit on a bus and get off at a little town or village that looked, nice, exciting. I could stay there for a few days. So yeah, I can talk about that experience for like a long time.
Oh, good, a long time. But, everybody is wanting to know. I mean, we had this question pop up twice. How was your experience in the Arctic? And I know that story. So if you want to talk about that, the Antarctic. Okay, so they keep saying.
Yeah, so I went to the other pole.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
Again, I think this is something that often shocks people when I say it, but at that time, so I went with an organization called 2041, and they do some great work. They work on climate change solutions. They, train these young people who are wanting to work on climate change solutions. And it started by this guy called Robert Swan, who was the first man to go to the South Pole and the North Pole. And the relevance of 2041 is that in the year 2041, the Antarctic Treaty will expire. And according to the treaty right now, no one country owns any land in Antarctica. You cannot exploit it for anything. You cannot use it for anything but scientific and peaceful purposes. So while India also has a base there, though that's all for science and, research. But in the years to come, once this treaty expires, there's a high chance that countries like, I'm going to name them here because there's no harm, like the US, China, Russia, they will want to exploit it, just like they've exploited the Arctic. The Arctic is almost ice-free in the summers now. which is, and the Arctic and the Antarctic, which are the poles, act like, they cool the rest of the planet. So imagine if the ice
like
there
that's
is
why it's
gone.
called the caps, right?
Yeah. So so I went with that organization and I went for a purpose, but I think seeing my trip and seeing the fact that, like an ordinary human being like me had gone, who's not a scientist, who's not a researcher, but just an enthusiast, someone who wants to do something. I think it opened up this entire like Pandora's box of like, I
Aspiration.
also want to go there. How can I go? And it's sad that there are so many companies now, using Antarctica as this next big tourism or tourist destination. So that's something I definitely feel bad about. It's something that I always do say that I went, it changed my life, but like I wish I hadn't gone.
Gone.
I'm
So that
not
it is safe.
definitely not like bad mouthing the organization in any way. They're doing great work, but I don't think it is up to me as like just someone who, is keen to do something to go to such a place. I think it's a very
To
special
endorse
place.
more travel to that place because you want to leave it
Exactly.
pristine. Yes.
Exactly. And then I think of like the massive carbon footprint that I had. And, like I crowdfunded for my trip. So I had almost 100 individuals who had backed me on bit giving, who had contributed financially. And every day that I work, every day that I live, like I do think of all those people who believed in me at that time and, said, okay, she's going for this amazing reason. Like I still try to live by that. So even in the work that I do today, like I do work in the environmental space, I feel like that journey is still continuing. It wasn't just a trip to Antarctica.
To
It's
Antarctic.
still, for me, it still guides everything that I do every single day. When people say that, one individual cannot make a difference, I think of that moment when I saw my first iceberg and I was crying. Like I was literally standing on the deck of the ship crying because it was such a magical moment. It was such
I know.
a,
At the tip of the world and the iceberg in
I
front of
couldn't
you.
believe it. Like, we live in these cities and these like man-made places, and I was in this place that is untouched, and yet I feel like it is suffering the most right now.
More. Yeah.
So
I hear what you're saying about not wanting more people to go. I mean, one of the things I have a big fight against is Three Idiots and what it did to Ladakh. You
oh
you
yes,
don't want,
yeah.
you just don't want those kind of stories anymore. So we have some children listening in, Mallika. One of them wanted to know who was your inspiration, who's your role model. I think Ahilya wanted to know
Uh,
who your role model was.
I think a lot of people like very close to me. I would definitely say my grandmom, my dadi,
Yeah,
just because of the way she lived. I
yeah,
mean, no excess, minimalism, the definition of minimalism, definition of zero waste without having to purchase any of these fancy zero waste products. Uh, the definition of really something that we should be doing right now if we want to like live to see the next 40, 50 years.
yeah.
So for me, close to home, I'd definitely say my grandmom. But there's so many other like internationally well-known leaders. I love Jane Goodall. I love her
Uh,
work.
my favorite too. Yes, yeah. And her quotes are
Uh,
absolutely something that I refer to all the time.
yeah. So I feel like if we all treated the world a little bit, like how she treats the chimpanzees with so much
Absolutely.
love, care, and
Yeah.
passion, I feel like again we'd be in a much better place.
Fantastic. So good. And what, of course, we adults need some a good a good pointer and some advice. So what would it be for the adults? I mean,
I think if anything, I hope that while this pandemic has brought so much, there's been so much pain and misery, but there's also, it has allowed many people, again, the privileged people at least, I'm not going to talk about the people who've, had to walk miles and miles to reach their home, but at least all of us who've been sitting in our homes the last 4 to 5 months, I hope it's taught us how to slow down.
yes,
I hope it taught us that we don't have to jump on a flight for every small thing.
Yes.
I hope it has taught us the importance of like the immediate environment right around us.
Right around us. Yes.
So we've
Absolutely.
had so much time to reflect, and I really hope when things go back to normal or the new normal or
New
whatever that
norm.
is, I hope that we carry these, these reflections
These
forward
these
and
reflections
these
and these
learnings.
lessons. Yeah. Yeah, learning.
Yeah.
And what you said about excesses, and I also think that this period taught us that you don't need too much to be happy.
Yeah. I
Bird
think
song and blue sky, I mean, that's it. And yeah.
seriously, I think the amount people have, where, especially in the first lockdown, as soon as there would be like, clear blue skies, people would run out to their houses, into their balconies if they had any, and to look up. And that's
Yes.
something we didn't do. We barely did. Let's just like put it
Yes.
that way.
There was also in Delhi, there's a long time since I saw a blue sky. So these 4 5 months of blue skies and, waking up to birds singing, I think that was really special. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Of
Thank you.
course,
So, yeah.
it came at the
Yeah.
expense of many people suffering, but I hope we can learn to, balance out and keep the blue skies even as we go
Yeah,
forward.
that very important. And also, the respect for people, like, the migrant labor we had and things like that. And I mean, there are many lessons to be learned in that direction. So yeah.
Yeah.
See, Malika, we could keep talking forever, but it was really wonderful having you and chatting with you. Thank you for giving us this time. Just one quick question. I wanted to know about the organization that you work for.
Sure. I work with an organization called Purpose. It's a
Yeah.
global social impact campaigning agency headquartered in New York, but we work around the globe. So I'm in the India office,
Yeah.
and I work here as a campaigner. So I work on
Campaigner.
various environmental and social campaigns across the country.
Fabulous. And what are your key issues that you take up, or is it?
It depends from campaign to campaign. I am currently working on a campaign to reduce vehicular emissions in Bangalore.
Okay.
And a very different campaign, I'm working on sexual and reproductive health in Patna
Oh,
for women.
fabulous. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so
So,
much for that.
yeah,
Yeah,
very different topics.
very different topics. And yeah, that's very interesting. And what's your advice to young children? Sorry, I forgot to ask. That's Ahilya asking. So,
What's my
what's your advice
thing?
to the young children? So I told you there are young children listening in. Yeah.
I think spend as much time as you can in nature. There's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
Great. There you are, Hilya Anagar. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mallika. You are listening to Mallika Arya, and you can find her on Instagram if you'd like to get in touch with her. Mallika, your Instagram is
Mallika Arya 30.
Mallika Arya 30. Yes, yeah, Mallika Arya 30. You can find her there. And thank you very much for listening in. August 12th is the World Elephant Day. So our next live chat will be something around the elephants, and we'll keep you posted. Thank you for listening in. Have a great
Thank you
weekend.
so
Thank you,
much.
Mallika. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.